You guys doing? So I'm excited. There's so many great, wonderful speakers here. It's really giving me chills to be on this panel today and just talk with you a little bit about the work we've been doing. And so we don't have that much time because we've done a lot of work in the last 8 years. So I'm going to try to get through most of the work that we've been doing, the stuff that we have coming up in the future, and then hopefully we can get some questions and answers at the end. So I'll just go through it a little bit with you. So like she was saying, we're the first plant-based hip-hop organization in history. So when I started 8 years ago, I would say, yeah, man, I'm going to do a plant-based hip-hop organization. And people were looking at me like I was crazy. They were like, hip-hop and plant-based is just, I don't know what you're talking about. But I knew from being involved in hip-hop for many, many years that there's many people in hip-hop that are vegans, that are animal rights advocacy. There's plant-based people all around in hip-hop. So I'm going to go through a little bit about what we've been doing. Well, if this thing could work, Linda, we would be all right. Okay, there we go. So we're going to talk about hip-hop today. We're going to talk about the toxic planet, and that kind of goes into what the previous speaker was talking about a little bit too, so I'll go into that a little bit for you. We're also going to be talking about our organization, Hip Hop is Green, so those three topics I'll cover for you today. So again, we are the first organization to combine hip-hop and vegan meals. We're the first organization to serve over 5,000 plant-based meals to youth and families all around the country. It's the first time this has ever been done in hip-hop. We're the largest plant-based team of hip-hop artists in the world. We also produced the first national plant-based hip-hop tours. So we actually went around the country and did plant-based hip-hop tours for the last 2 years in a row. We also created a new element in hip-hop culture, and I'll be talking to you about that element soon. We also created the first plant-based hip-hop mixtape. I'm just going to keep going. We also produced the first plant-based hip-hop concert. We also produced the first plant-based hip-hop award show. We also created the first plant-based hip-hop magazine, Fresh Start Magazine. So that's some of the list of accomplishments that we've done. And we also have a national organization with chapters all around the country. I would like to announce that we have 3 chapters that we just recently started in Canada as well, too. So we're moving this thing international and worldwide. I'm talking to starting a chapter in London right now, so it's on. We're going to start a little bit about what is hip-hop. Raise your hands if you know what hip-hop is. All right, okay. So, okay, we got everybody raising their hands. So usually when we talk about hip-hop, we're thinking about hip-hop music, right? That's the number one thing that comes into people's mind. I want to go a little bit into the cultural aspects of hip-hop culture. Just to let you know why I'm talking about these things, how many people, raise your hands, know who KRS-One is? All right, mostly everybody in the audience. KRS-One is a really good friend of mine. He's a partner. Obviously, he is the teacher and the philosopher in hip-hop culture, and I studied under KRS-One for many years. I traveled with him and his family, and he gave me a really deeper meaning of what the culture of hip-hop is. And so as I gleaned information from him, I began to teach and study, and I had a radio show where I talked about the culture of hip-hop. So I'm going to give you a little bit about what I did on my radio show and some of my speeches about what hip-hop culture is today. So we've got a nice photo here of fire and water. So as I said, some people have the imagination and have the concept in their mind that hip-hop is just drug dealers, women swinging on poles. It's negative. I talk to a lot of people like this, and when I talk to them, I've quoted this phrase. I do what I call hip-hop interventions. People need an intervention on what hip-hop is because of the media and the proliferation of these images and sounds that are going around. So that's my job as an ambassador of hip-hop culture, is to talk about the deeper meaning of hip-hop and the double-edged sword of what hip-hop is. As in this picture, when we want to live, we need water. Water is one of the most important things that we need to live. But also, If we're in the middle of the ocean and we don't have a boat, water could be our worst enemy at that point. So hip hop is just the same. There's really great points about hip hop, and then there's the other side of hip hop too. So I really wanted to highlight the positive attributes of what hip hop culture is. And that's what I'm gonna do here today, and how powerful it is too. So here's a quote from my friend. If hip hop has the ability to corrupt young minds, it also has the ability to uplift them. It's an interesting statement. Let's talk about the origins of hip hop. How many people know who this man is just by their face? How many people? One person. Two? Two people out of a crowd of what, 75 people here? This is the father of hip hop culture. His name is Kool Herc. He started hip hop culture in the South Bronx on August 11th, 1973. He came from Jamaica. In Jamaica, they have Jamaican dancehall music, and he was a fan when he was a kid of Jamaican dancehall music, and he brought that over to the United States for the first time. This is the founder of hip hop. He's still alive. I mean, people really need to understand this, that Kool Herc is the founder of hip hop culture. Also, too, over the last 40 years, hip hop has become a global culture. So you can go to Denmark, Jakarta, Japan, Switzerland, wherever you go, there is hip hop represented there. It's also comprised of many multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-religions, a part of hip hop culture. So, I mean, we're probably one of the most diverse cultures on the planet when it comes to, diversity and inclusion. Also, too, hip hop has more influence on young people and than their parents and religion. Now, that's a big statement, the influence that hip hop has. And as I alluded to in the slide before with the fire and water, it could go two ways, right? It could be a positive influence on youth, which we've seen millions of times over, or it could be a negative influence on youth as well. So hopefully the work that we're doing really inspires that positive aspect of hip hop culture. So, a little bit about when we created the culture of hip hop and we created what this culture is. On May 16, 2001, 300 delegates went to the United Nations with a document called the Hip Hop Declaration of Peace. Now, we introduced 18 principles in the Hip Hop Declaration of Peace which guide hip hop culture towards sustainability and health and wellness and all of that stuff. The first principle in the Hip Hop Declaration of Peace, it outlines the then 9 elements that comprise hip hop culture. So there's 9 elements involved in hip hop culture. How many people knew there was 9 elements in hip hop culture? Raise your hand, be honest now. 2 people, okay, good, perfect. All right, so this is a picture of the Hip Hop Declaration of Peace and all of the people that put this thing together. Again, it was ratified by the United Nations in 2001, and BET and MTV and CNN and all the media were not there to cover this event. And this is probably the most historical document in the history of hip hop. The first principle, like I said, outlined what the elements of hip hop is. So and I'm gonna go through these elements with you so you can understand what the culture is about. Got a little pie chart here to go through. That's what we're gonna do. So hip hop is not rap music. Let's just erase that right now. It's not rap music, it's a culture. We started with the DJ, Kool Herc. Kool Herc was so amazing at his DJ skills that what he did with those 2 turntables was amazing. He would give somebody a microphone and say, go tell everybody how good I am, right? And they stand in front of his equipment and they started telling how good their DJ was. That is what we call an MC, a master of ceremony. They're the MC. Rapping is what they do. That's what the MCs are doing, they're rapping. But, the media say, hey, we like the term rapping, and that's where rappers came from. But really what they are is MCs. Also, too, the break-in is the next element, and people have seen that. Graffiti art is the next element of hip-hop culture. Those are the 4 core elements that we rocked with for many years. Those are the really 4 pillars of hip-hop culture. It wasn't until the late 80s where we put in street knowledge. And that's kind of what I'm giving you now, something that you couldn't really learn in a classroom, something maybe your grandmother would tell you in the kitchen cooking with you, or your grandfather. Somebody would impart some knowledge to you that you didn't get in a formal classroom setting. We learn that in hip hop culture all the time, every day. Also, too, beatboxing. In the 70s, they took out music from the schools. We didn't have any instruments to unleash our creative ability. So what do we come up with? Making music with nothing. So that's what's so amazing about hip hop culture, is we take nothing and make something out of it. And so you can look at people like Bobby McFerrin, where we got influence from, and other people that make music with their mouths. Also, street fashion. That's the seventh element of hip hop. Tommy Hilfiger, he was really making some really cool clothes that a lot of people rocked back in the day. And then, you know, I think what Damon John, how many people know Damon John out of Shark Tank? Cool. So Damon John is a good friend of mine too, and he was telling me the story that when they were wearing Tommy Hilfiger clothes, Tommy Hilfiger was saying, we don't want those hoodlums in the inner cities wearing our brand. Tommy Hilfiger said that back in the day. So you know what we did? Okay, we're gonna make our own brands, right? And so you had people like Cross Colors, you had people like FUBU, For Us, By Us, which is Damon John's first brand. A really good friend of mine, I grew up with him, his name is Tony Shellman. I'm from Seattle, Washington, by the way. And I went to school with Tony, and he created a brand called Aniche. He created another brand called Mecca. And just to give you how amazing this stuff is, Tony sold Aniche for $200 million. Mecca, I think he sold for $100 million, and now he has another brand called Parrish. When we went into the fashion industry, we totally revolutionized the fashion industry when hip hop came involved. So the next is street language. You can get it, we kind of gleaned this from the last poets. And different people who articulated themselves in a really cool way. Muhammad Ali is an amazing example of street language, all right? And he's an influence in hip hop culture, a big major influence in hip hop culture. And so, you know how we flip the language, that's what we do. Street entrepreneurialism is rounding out the ninth element of hip hop culture. And you can, again, people like Tony Shellman, people like Damon John, people like Jay-Z, people like Dr. Dre here in LA. So these are people who really took something from the streets. They didn't have any business sense whatsoever, came into the industry and mastered it. This is the flip side of what hip hop can do for people, and just on the entrepreneurial point, right? So now we get to the 10th element of hip hop, which is health and wellness. And I'll tell you a little story. In 2014, we had done many tours around the country. We were building our organization. And sometime right around this year, I kind of reflect, right around this month of time, I kind of reflect what we did good this year and what we're going to do next year. And I was thinking about that in 2014. And I was like, you know what? Hip hop needs health and wellness as a formal part of our culture. And I started thinking about it, and it just came to me that we need to add a new element in our culture. So I wrote what's called an open letter to hip hop. And I sent it to many legends and pioneers in hip hop culture, stating my case of why we need to add health and wellness, and what is the 10th element of hip hop, and what can it do for the earth and the planet and the people and all that stuff. People came back with overwhelming support. What do you need from us? So, and just to make a long story short, because I'll go through it a little bit with you, more intense, but we were able to actually start a new element in hip hop in 2016, which is health and wellness. So I'm really proud of that. So again, rap is something you do. Hip hop is something that you live. We say we are hip hop. That's what we are. We are hip hop. So, and I'll underscore this point to you again. Hip hop culture has become the most powerful youth force on planet Earth. That's a major statement. The numbers that the scientists showed us about the global warming and the effects and all of that stuff, we have to reach young people. And how are we going to reach young people? What's the best way to reach young people? I believe it's hip hop. I believe it's hip hop. So we're going to move into the next phase of what I'm talking about, and that really actually goes into the doctor, really talking about a toxic planet, right? And I'm going to go through this real quick because she went through with more data than I'm going to ever come through. Today, every system that supports life on Earth is in jeopardy. Every system. So we're talking about the soil, the oceans, the air, the forest, the food, people, planets, animals, all that stuff. Also, too, the big ocean fish are down 50% since 1950. We're talking about populations of land animals are down 28% since 1970. Marine birds are down 30% since 1995, and 70% of the Earth's surface has been transformed or mowed down for goods and services already. So these are some alarming figures that our research has given us. And so it creates a really serious mission for us to do in hip hop culture. Picture of a bee. 50% of the bees are already gone. 1 out of 3 bites of food comes from bees, and 50% of them are already gone. Here's an interesting statement. Scientists say that in about 35 years, 50% of all plant and animal life will be gone forever, just 35 years from now. So what are we going to do to make sure that that statement never happens? And that is the mission of what we're doing at Hip Hop is Green. And there we are, the answer to the toxic planet. And let's talk about it. It comes from what we eat. We're talking about obesity numbers as well. So these numbers are alarming. Since 1990, we've had so many incidences of heart attack, cancer, diabetes, stroke in our communities. People are really dealing with this, youths, families. It's crazy what we've seen out there. And people have heard this statement over and over, but I do have to put it in here, that this generation is currently slated to not outlive the next generation, right? So that's really crazy when you think about that statement, that this generation, they're not going to outlive their parents if we keep going down this road of them not knowing the toxic chemicals that they're putting in their body every day, right? Cancer, heart attack, stroke, diabetes, death. We know where it's coming from. The standard American diet that I was on, you know, and many other people were on, you know, fish, chicken, all these things. This is what is the #1 cause of all of those global numbers that we're talking about. And so we're going right to the root source of it. The root source is we need to change the way that we eat first and change the way that we think. So I'll give you a little thing here. Where's my little picture? Oh, there it is. This picture right here is so important to me. I was not a vegan all my life. Matter of fact, I used to be the guy at the barbecue with the barbecue things, ready to go with the apron. I could throw down on some barbecue, right? And I got involved with this mission, and I changed my thinking, and I was doing my first research tour to an event. I went to a Veg Fest back in 2008. How many people have ever been to a Veg Fest? Many people here. Well, this was my first time. I didn't know what to expect. And, you know, I come from a culture where we eat our cultural food. And so I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to have to go vegan in this project for about 6 or 7 months, and I'm going to have to eat that nasty tofu square, some nuts, and some salad. The food is bland. It stinks. I don't want to do it. It's going to be hard as hell. And then, you know, where am I going to get my protein from, Will? Where am I going to get it from? Am I going to go and fall on the ground in convulsions because I don't have protein in my body? I'm literally thinking this as I'm driving to the Veg Fest. So I get to the Veg Fest, and I walk in, and I'm like, okay, there's like a lot of white people here. I'm like, okay, what's up with that? And so I started trying the food, and I couldn't, it was blowing my mind. Like, oh, I didn't know they had vegan cheese. I didn't know they had vegan meat. What's this nut milk stuff? I'm like, man, y'all is wrong for this. You're keeping all of this stuff from black folks. That's your job. This is wrong. So I stepped to the producer. I actually stepped to the guy that produced the events. I said, man, what's up with this? There's no diversity in the room. What's going on? And he's like, Keith, I'm going to invite you to dinner. It's a whole story behind it. Let's have dinner together. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's have dinner. And this is a older Jewish guy in his early 70s, you know, he's pretty older. We're sitting down at dinner. And I'm like, okay, so what's up, Stuart? Why isn't there any black people or people of color in the events? And he's like, Keith, I've been literally going to inner cities for years, talking to black folks, young people in the community, and they look at me like I'm from Mars. I can't reach these kids. And I'm like, oh, okay, you're not cool. That was my diagnosis, is you're not cool. So he was like, yeah, I'm not cool. I was like, okay, so I got an idea. Why don't we do an event together? You and I will do an event. I managed about maybe 100 kids at that time. It was crazy. I had these dance groups I was managing, and you know, I had all kind of kids, and then I had people in hip hop that I knew. I was like, man, I can bring all the talent. I can bring all the people. You do the food, but make sure it's good. Now, I'm gonna taste it first. So we did it, and I said, let's call it a hip hop green dinner. Let's call it a hip hop green dinner. So I'm at the hip hop green dinner, and mind you, remember the tofu square, the nuts, and the salad. Just remember that, right? I'm thinking about this in my head because when I went to that Veg Fest, I call it the epiphany moment. The epiphany moment is the moment where your life changes forever because you did something you never did before. And you're like, oh man, I can't believe it. This is amazing. That's the moment that I had at the Veg Fest. I call it the epiphany moment. So I'm sitting here, we did the speakers, we did the performers, the event's going great, we got people in there, it's like good energy, and then I'm like shaking in my boots because I'm like, oh my God, they're about to eat the food now. In just a minute, they're about to do it. And guess what? Everybody in the crowd, I said, who here is tried a vegan meal before and ate a vegan? And nobody raised their hands. Nobody had had a vegan meal before. So this is their first vegan meal. So, all right, let's go eat the meal. Got the meal, they got their food, and they started eating it. And I tell you what happened. The epiphany moment started happening in the room over and over and over again with the kids. It's just amazing. It gave me goosebumps. I was like, really like, this is some energy I never really felt at a hip hop event before. And, you know, I was speaking maybe about a year ago, and a lady came up to me after I came down, and she said, Keith, you know, I brought my granddaughter to your first hip hop green dinner in 2009. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah. And, you know, I just kept on going. She's like, no, come here, let me tell you something. I was like, what? She's like, my granddaughter is still vegan to this day from coming to your event. And most of the people in my family are eating, you know, better because they went to your event. I'm like, what the you know what I mean? Like, this is crazy. So it's very powerful when you come to one of our events. It's very inspirational. It's very transformative. I'm going to tell you some stories. We're going to get into them. So we started in 2009. This is actually a picture of the first hip hop green dinner right there. Me and my little plate. We did, this is crazy. We just did an event in Indianapolis where we served them the Tupac burger. We introduced the Tupac burger. Clap, everybody clap for the Tupac burger. Tupac burger. Yeah, this is a picture of our first event in New York. We were at PS 197 there. We did vegan tacos that day. And that's a picture of our event. Now, we usually do the speakers and performers first, but this event we did the food first for some reason. And then I was coming off the stage because I was like, okay, we about to get them now. I got all these performers lined up. They're going to get them. And then I felt a drop of rain, like a little drop. I was like, what's up? And then another. Then a monsoon came down of holy biblical proportion. Like we had to run for our lives at that event. So I just wanted to put that picture in there because that was a crazy experience, man. This is some more pictures from events that we've done. We've done them in Oakland, New York, Atlanta. We've been just all around the country doing these meals. The picture in your right corner, let me tell you a little bit about that picture. The lady in there in green is a chef by the name of Lauren Vanderpool. Lauren is a part of our team. As I said, we have one of the largest teams ever assembled in hip-hop of people that are plant-based. She used to be the chef for Stevie Wonder. She also used to be the chef for Common and Venus and Serena. And this lady that's walking out right here in the blue, don't you walk out. This is Tracy McCorder. She's part of our team too, and she'll be speaking later on. Give Tracy a hand. Tracy is part of our team as well, and she was at this event. This is one of the greatest events we did. Let me tell you a little bit about it. It's in Washington, D.C. I'm in the hood, and when I say the hood, I'm talking about the hood. Like literally across the street from our venue, they're shooting dope. I walk up to the venue to peep it out, and there's actually dope dealers selling dope in front of the door to my event. And I'm carrying, 2 barrels of Asian pears. How many people know how much an Asian pear costs? Those things are expensive, dude. And so we were at a 144-acre farm. We picked them, and they were fresh. And I'm walking in, and he's like, so what you guys doing? I'm like, hey, man, we're about to do an event here, man. We're about to bring health and wellness to the community. It's a hip-hop green dinner. We got performances. All that stuff is free. You can come, too, as long as you're not selling dope or being high or anything. You come on through. And I was like, hey, take an Asian pear. Get some electrolytes in your system. You know what I mean? He bit the Asian pear. He was like, oh, man, this is pretty good. All right. So, we're setting up the event and all that stuff. And for the next couple of days, and all the dope dealers and people are peeping us out, and we're like peeping them out, and some of them we're talking to. I went over to the park. I handed out Asian pears to them. Let me tell you something personally about me too. I'm 25 years clean and sober. Okay, so thank you. So I used to be one of those dudes. Okay, back in the 80s, you didn't want to see me. Okay, just to let you know how much transformative my life has been. But I can relate to people that are out there doing it. So I went and talked with them and all of that stuff and, hung out with them and all that. So anyway, comes the night of our event, Friday night. I know what happens on Friday night with dope dealers. That's the night they got to get their packages off. I'm just being real with y'all. That's the night. And I'm like, okay, they're going to be in front of my door, selling their packages. My people are trying to come in. Not a good look. So I'm driving around the corner, and I'm looking at the door, and I'm like, damn, there's nobody selling dope at the door. And then I looked at the park, and I was like, there's nobody in the park. And so I walked in the venue, and I'm like, looking at the guy that's setting the venue up. I'm like, man, what's up? What's going on? He's like, Keith, man, I don't know what's going on, man. I'm like, yeah, what's happening? He's like, you see those kids over there in the corner? And I'm like, yep. He said, those are the dope dealers' kids. They sent their kids to your event, cleaned the park up, and left. That's the respect that our work is getting in the communities. So, yeah. So I'm telling you, that event right there was on some high-level, crazy stuff, man. Dick Gregory's daughter, Ayanna Gregory, performed. Tracy McCorder, she was a speaker. Venus and Serena's chef did the food. DJ Soyo, who is my best friend, she was the DJ for the event. It was on some high-level stuff, man. We had people in the audience crying. It was that amazing of a type of event. So we do transformative events. That's what we do. This is part of our team here. That's Stickman of Dead Prez. That's me, Lauren Anelis of the Food Empowerment Project. Gotta give a shout out to her. She's part of our team as well. And I want to give a big shout out to my friend Gail, who's here taking the photos, and she helps with our executive team of Hip Hop is Green. My partner, Ashell, the guy to your far left right here, he started working with me in 2010, and we've never stopped working together since. We've been working together for almost 8 years now. So, yeah, that's our team there. And I wanted to play a little video for you real quick, but I don't know if we have enough time. I've explained what the Hip Hop Green Dinners are, so you kind of know what it is. This is a statement Van Jones gave to me. Van Jones is a good friend of mine. How many people know Van Jones? All right. So I'm speaking with him, and he gave me this statement years ago. He said, hip-hop is the drumbeat for the whole world. If hip-hop moves in a green direction, the world will move in a green direction. So when we did those first hip-hop tours, those first plant-based tours in 2015 and 2016, I was thinking about this statement. And I was thinking about the part where Van said, if hip-hop moves in a green direction. And then I said, if. I was like, nah, hip hop is green. And so that's how we came up with our name for our organization, through this statement. So that's why I just wanted to share that with you. Hip hop is green. And so these are some of the cities that we did in our 2015 tour. Our mission at Hip Hop is Green, and our purpose really is to produce cultural and educational events and programming to empower leadership and commitment of communities to health and wellness resources. We want to be the world's largest resource for everything hip hop and green. That's really what we're doing. Birth of the 10th Element. On April 21st, like I was saying, we went to New York. We were at the Schomburg in New York. I picked that venue because it's one of the most educational venues about culture in the world. And we all assembled there to sign our proclamation. This is the definition of the 10th element of hip hop right here, but I'll just say that it covers 6 areas: plant-based eating, organic gardening, fitness, sobriety, food justice, and animal rights. That's what the 10th element of hip hop covers. This right here is a copy of the 10th element of hip hop health and wellness proclamation. And when Styles P came out to get his award, how many people know Styles P at the Locks? 2, 3, 4, 5 people. Okay, cool. Styles P is a legendary hip hopper, and you know, he has an organization called Juices for Life in New York. He owns 3 juice bars in New York in the hood. So he's doing the work. He's vegan himself and all of that stuff. But when he came out on stage to accept his award, he said the 10th element of hip hop should be the first element. It's the most important element in hip hop history, because health and wellness, if you don't have that, you can't do any of the other elements. So we really feel proud about that statement. Also, we met with the African American Museum in Washington, D.C., and we're talking right now about getting this document put into that museum forever. So it's an amazing thing that we produce. So thank you so much. That's me signing this the proclamation with one of my heroes, Easy A.D. of the Cold Crush Brothers, one of the first ever hip-hop groups in the history of hip-hop. I'm going to end real quick with some pictures from our trips that we did. These are some of our flyers of all of our stuff that we've done, different events that we've been through. And this is a fresh copy of Fresh Start magazine. It's the first ever plant-based hip-hop magazine in history. I got a copy here. You guys can see it. I have copies of the 10th element of hip-hop health and wellness proclamation. These are stories. Genesis Butler's in it. All kind of people. Will Power, he has a story in it as well. Will Tucker. We also produced the first ever mixtape. So there's 35 songs on it. They're all plant-based, banging beats, but plant-based, okay? It's not nursery rhyme hip-hop, okay? It's real. You can meditate to it, you can do yoga to it, ride your bike, cook your food to it, all that. You know, we do the 10th element of hip hop health and wellness concert. We also have the largest plant-based team ever assembled. We've established chapters in 20 cities all around the country right now. So we have a chapter here in Los Angeles. So if you're here and you hear about the Hip Hop Green Dinner, make sure you attend, because it's going to be an amazing experience. So these are some of our chapter leaders all around the country. Hit us up at hiphopisgreen.com, and hip hop is green everywhere. #hiphopisgreen. Thank you so much.